Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whenever you're seeing this. I'm really happy that you're able to join us. My name is Will Figueroa, and you are with us here at the Tiger's Den Live. These episodes are curated or put together because of the man. Is it this way? Yes, this way, right next to me. Exactly. Paul Routhier. Paul Routhier is the founder of ClevelandRain.com and is the creator of the Tigers framework. Paul, good morning.
Good morning. How are you today, Will? Friday.
Definitely feels like a Friday. Yes.
Feels like a Friday.
End of the week, but we're pushing through, right? Because we're going to go into a deep dive into execution. The last we spoke about execution, clearly this was your forte, right? This is what you're known for. This is your bread and butter. This is what you instill in people and in all of the organizations and businesses that you're involved in. And I wanted to really get deep in on this so that people could really have an understanding of what it means to execute. That is the E in Tiger and in the Tiger framework. And so as we were kind of going through the pre-show and kind of going through some of the notes that I wanted to go into, one of the things I wanted to start off with was that you have this drumbeat. It's like this drumbeat of execution, right? And the drumbeat of execution seemingly is, what is your service? What is it that you do? And who is it that you help? And it's just this constant drumbeat. And I love that. I love the visualization of that, because if I'm on, the image that comes to mind are the men and women who were, putting the rail system together, and they did it over song, or even on a boat, right? People rowing, or people marching, right? Like, it's very militaristic in that sense. And I love that there's just this constant drumbeat that at the end of the day, you could kind of lean into this. Where does that even come from? What is it, or what happened that it is like so burnt into you?
Well,
that you leave it always.
number one, I can't believe you want to talk about execution on a Friday when Saturday is rejuvenation day, right? It's just like, really? No. And the visual of the Spartan whips.
Oh no! I didn't.
That's just kind of hurt me, man.
That was you, my friend, not me.
It's like,
Yeah. I thought of the rail system. I thought of boats. I thought of actually what I thought of was rowing, right? I'm thinking of this coach, almost like Olympic style rowing, where they as they're putting their paddles in the water, they're doing it in a rhythm. And so, although Spartan boats work too as well.
I took that to another level, is what you're telling me. But you threw military in there, and ogres, and we're in this day and age of heartfelt leaders. They're
I know,
diametrically opposed. So,
right. So speaking of that, right? So tell me about that, right? Because it's quite burnt into not only what you do every day, but you exude this idea of, even in your introduction, as you're introducing people, or as you're introducing yourself to people, this is the problem that I solve, and this is who I do it for, right? Where did that come from? What happened that you now know that is like a clear, almost purpose, right, of what you do?
Well, it is purpose. That's a perfect word. That is like the word, because let's take it from an entrepreneur standpoint. Entrepreneur finds his purpose. He finds that purpose serves. He goes out to find people to serve with that purpose. Got to find the right people. It's the people that need that service. So those two questions really kind of formulate how I'm going to work with you, or how you're going to go out into the world with your company and do what you have, and what your company's mission is, and all of that, and tying your leadership around, and your leaders around that mission and purpose, so that everybody is rowing in synchronicity to get to the goal, right?
100%. And speaking of leadership, because the last time that we spoke in regards to execution, we really spoke about very high level in regards to the enterprise and some of the stuff that you've done and the success that you've had there. And then we really got into some of the nitty gritty as the individual, right? Because it really kind of comes down to that. Talk to us more about execution from the leadership perspective. You said last time that as leaders distance themselves from the front line, the process kind of collapses, right? Execution gets lost, clarity the communication becomes really fogged in their clarity. Talk to us from a leadership perspective. How do you leverage execution from the Tiger framework, from the leadership perspective, right? Say I'm middle management, or even I'm on the board or the executive team. How can I ensure that my leadership is executing and I'm executing as the leader that I am?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I just went through this with a company, and we went through a vision mission statement exercise with the executive leadership. So,
Wow.
right, we built their core values, what they're about, their mission statement, their moonshot, the whole ball of wax, and this group took 18 hours to wrap themselves around basically 10 sentences, right? Because, but what came of that was this core mission, their values, everything that they're going to guide themselves through hiring, through who they partner with. Their entire business operation will wrap around this set of principles, right? And so that core principle or those core values have been put together by everyone in the leadership of that company. So
How do
they
you find?
all it's a piece of all of them.
Yeah.
And then that guides all the hires. It guides how they operate the company. It ensures that they're bringing on people that fit those core values, that have the same core values. So to answer your question and get back to your point, it is really being very stringent and tied in to who you are and who your company is as a culture, and bringing that all the way down. So you bring people on board, and you assess their performance and their execution based on those core values.
Yeah, I love that. Before we speak about kind of the tactical on as a leader bringing things down, I want to get into how do you find those principles? It's one thing to find what I value as an individual, but now we're putting a board of people together in their expertise, or maybe it's a C-suite, and they have all these different experiences. How do you find those principles, or explain to us a little bit of that exercise that you went through? Because it seems pretty intense, and simultaneously it seems pretty effective too. Talk to us about how did you find those principles?
Well, generally, the founder of whatever company has a vision, right? I mean, you wouldn't be doing it if you didn't have a vision. So he or she, excuse me, brings like-minded people together to get that. So they're somewhat already intertwined. What it's more about is getting clarity on that
Mm,
vision. Okay, the
mm.
where, the how, the what's, and becoming very clear on the vision, on your values. That way you can build up the company from there. Then you're platforming your company, because you know what this company is going to be about, both from who you, or what problem do you fix, and who do you fix it for, down to how you fix it,
Yeah.
how we're going to fix it as a company, right? As an attitude, as a way of doing business, and being inspired wrapped around that. It's very important that the leadership team be so tightly tied in with that, and to live that on a day-to-day basis, because
Yeah.
it really, if you're on your first day opening your doors and you have that, you are going places. 99% of companies, not I'm very comfortable in saying
Yeah.
99% of companies don't do that before they open their doors.
Mm,
The ones that do are absolutely going places. And then most of your large enterprises have figured this out along the way,
yeah.
right? And done this. I mean, I know very large enterprises that meet on this once a month, right? And try to make sure that as they're working with their their levels, that is being lived and breathed throughout the company.
Yeah, it's so true. I was working with an organization not long ago, and there were things going on, and to your point, right? It was just a lack of clarity, and to the point in which one part of the team was doing something, and then the other part of the team was undoing that in order to be able to get what they thought done. And so one was almost like undermining the other. And I remember having the conversation with this leader and saying, "Hey, you know, if if there's a certain style or there's a certain thing that you want to do, then by all means, let's jump on that wave, right? Because this kind of back and forth isn't benefiting anyone. It's and to your point, it absolutely kills an organization from the inside out, right? Because then it builds animosity, it builds resentment. Hey, why did you do this? Where are you? What's going on? And so I ended up having the conversation with this other team and this other team lead and saying, hey, like, what is your vision? We need to, is the mission still this? You know, was it to execute on this? Okay, great. So we know what the mission is, right? And I think we still value communication and all these other things, right? And we kind of bang, 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 bang. They're like, yeah, 100%, absolutely right. I said, so I think what we're missing, correct me if I'm wrong, is really a long-term vision of how you want this to be kind of completed, how you see the organization as we're building it out. And sure enough, he's like, you know, Will, that is a really good point. Yeah. And he kind of took a breath, and I don't think it actually hit him. Uh, and he came back and said, yeah, you know what? We want to be the number one resource for, you know, their industry, their niche. And we want to make sure that the systems that are in place allow for a really fresh customer experience and that everyone is involved in that. Great. So now that we're finally aligned, can we as a team unite our front and be able to work on, you know, points 1, 2, because I had a punch list, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
we got
Oh
to
yeah.
bang, 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 right? And he's like, yeah, you know what? Absolutely. Let me talk to the other side of the house. We're gonna align ourselves. We're gonna do this. You're absolutely right. Let's go ahead and do it. The next day, they made thousands of dollars in minutes at launch. Now it came close, right? Because there was this back and forth, but it emphasizes your point in regards to clarity, communication, and understanding your business. Would you say that it really is like that's the reason why bigger organizations truly fail is because they don't have that clarity? I mean, the fact that you're speaking about businesses that meet in some cases that in your experience that meet monthly, you know, on vision and aligning themselves what they're doing to that vision, I think that speaks a lot to that organization. Would you say that that would be the reason also that organizations fail?
I would. So when your organization makes a decision, whether it's a hire, whether it's a strategic partnership, you analyze what that relationship is going to be. And without a clear vision and a clear, set of policy based on that vision, without, clear values and policies based on those values, then you don't have a lens to look through when you're analyzing those potential
Mhm.
relationships. Okay, really, this is about a lens to look through, right? Am, am I asking myself these questions? Does this align with our core values?
Mm.
Does this align with our mission? Does this align with the people that we serve, right? Or are we adding something outside
Yeah.
to try to fit it in there? Okay. Or are do we have the potential of damaging our core values by bringing this organization in with us or this person in with us? Is it going to eat away acid like at our culture because we're bringing in something that's counter to our core values.
Sure.
So, so that's where it really starts, because if you bring that in, let's say it's a hire that you bring that doesn't quite fit the core values, but they bring something to the table that you need right now. So, it's usually the way that decision happens is, we need this done now. He can do it. Let's bring it in, but he doesn't fit with our core values. Okay, now you've brought something in to undermine. It's really interesting. If you have a group of high performers and you bring a low performer into the mix, you hire a low performer and you don't do anything about it, and you let it go, and you let it go, your high performers start performing at a lower performance level. It will literally bring down the group's performance level. So
Interesting.
that's and if you dig into that issue, it's about the core values, because you have a group of high performers that have completely bought in and are completely aligned with the core values of the company and the mission. So this is why the whole boat's rowing forward. And then you got this one guy who's slow on the oar, right? He's a little slow, and the oar drags in the water, and all of a sudden your boat's turning.
Right. Yeah, you're literally going in the wrong direction.
You're literally starting to go off course because one oar's not performing at the same level the other oars are. I'm glad you brought the boat thing up. It's useful at this point.
It makes sense. And I remember of a story of Alex Hermosi. Alex Hermosi owns acquisition.com, and he's kind of made him a name for himself on YouTube and social media as of late, as a way of really being top of funnel, because he only kind of deals with bigger businesses and revenue, tens of millions in that regard. And he spoke about, as he was going in helping another organization, because he was really involved in systems and people and their branding. In any event, so he went into this gym because that's kind of what he was known for in the fitness industry specifically. And he understood that there were players that, and it was a rather large gym chain, regional, but large in and of itself. And he knew that there were players within the organization who maybe didn't care, or really didn't understand the vision, or really didn't have the tenacity to follow through on things like sales and leads and things of that nature. And so he remembers getting a phone call, and I'm probably butchering the story, but what ended up coming from it was there was a meeting at 2 p.m. on Friday. They're going to close all the gyms, and at 2 p.m. they're going to go. And so he's there. The owner of the gym is there. His team is there, and they're waiting. And all the chairs are there, and the door is there. 1:59, people are walking in. At 2:00, he tells the assistant, lock the door. Lock the door. And sure enough, exactly at 2, what happens? People are knocking. Hey, let me in. Can you unlock? And that set the tone. People who were on the inside understood, and people on the outside understood that there was a issue in values here. And those who were there understood the mission and understood those values, and the people who weren't there on time didn't understand, and there were going to be consequences. And sure enough, they were able to flip that gym, and that's kind of what he was known for at the time. They were able to flip that gym to, I think it was like a few $100,000 to like millions of dollars, because they were hiring the right people. They aligned their vision. They met weekly in regards to their KPIs that were in alignment with all of these things. So it goes to show, to your point, if you don't have the right people, then it's very difficult to be able to execute. To the example of rowing the boat, and if someone's oar is still in the water, you could be going in a completely different direction. Talk to us about the importance of the people around you. And this brings up a really good point. I never thought of, and maybe just because of the size of my business, it's super small. I never thought about how bringing in the right person can accelerate you, and bringing in the wrong person can decelerate you, or worse, even put you in the wrong direction. How do you ensure that the people that you bring into a team are the right people to continue to accelerate you, or at least keep pace as someone kind of, as the leader kind of ignites the fire, makes things hot and cools things down when we need to cool things down.
Yeah, so I recommend that that you have not only, if you're a business, of course, having a core mission and a set of values is important, but
Right.
as a person, as an individual, you should have a mission. There's absolutely a purpose that
Mm,
that you want to fulfill as a person, and goals that you're setting. And along with that, you should really understand your own core values
yeah.
and look at through that lens at the people you have around you. That includes friends. We always talk about not having negative people around you. If you have a set of core values and you have a mission and you're going somewhere and you have that lens built, and you're doing your goals every morning, maybe reviewing your core values every morning, right? So that you keep that lens nice and clean, so it doesn't get foggy and dirty. You want to clean it every morning.
Mm,
That way you can look at all the interactions that you have on a daily basis and the people that you're bringing into your life through that lens. I do not know a lot of people who actually kind of really look at it consciously that way. I mean, there's a subconscious factor to that, but
sure, sure.
I don't know a ton of people that I know a few.
Yeah.
I know, I even will tell you, it's only been the past couple of years that I've looked at it through a core. I've doing core values for businesses, but I was never really thinking about it from that standpoint with
Yeah.
myself. And I did eject some negative people out of my life because I
Wow.
started looking. I'm like, are these people helping me,
Yeah.
or? And remember, we went to generosity the other day. We were talking about, well, how do you know? Well, I'm generous to them, but they take, and their negativity is taking my energy.
Mm,
That's where I feel taken advantage of, when they suck my energy away because
yeah.
of their negativity, right? And I found that those people. Then I started going, okay, I'm going to apply this core value thing that I do with companies. I'm going to start applying that to myself. I know who I am. I know what my purpose is. I know, what my core values are. I'm going to start doing what I'm helping these companies do. I'm going to start doing it personally. And
Mm,
boy, that, I'll tell you, that was a significant change in my life.
mm,
I found myself much happier. Okay. I mean, like really happy over the past couple of years, because I literally got the negativity out. If I can see it right away, if I want to be around somebody or not. I mean, within minutes,
yeah.
I can just see the values alignment, and it's so discerning. And so it's not like I'm mean to the people, but it's like, okay, this is not somebody that
Sure.
I want in my inner circle, as
Yeah.
we move
Unless the
forward.
occasion calls for it, right? Unless the occasion calls for
Right.
it. But to
Yeah.
your point, it's interesting that you speak about auditing. You're almost auditing your network. You're auditing the people around you, and
Hmm.
you are. I mean, you you speak about it, you live it, and I laugh because it's something that I admire, because you you really do exude this, and it's really, for me, it's really refreshing. So how do you find those other people, right? Because people kind of come and go, right? And if you're conscious of your mission, your vision, your values personally, how do you find the person? If I'm in a leadership position, right? Let's go back to the business perspective for a second. If I'm in a leadership perspective, and not only do I know the mission, vision, values of the organization that I'm building, or that I work for or work with, but then I have my own mission, vision, and values, and I've aligned those. How do you, when there's a need to find a person, how do you find that person? Can you ask about mission, vision, values? Can you grow your own, knowing that they have the skill set, and help them onboard and streamline up? Or do you just want the right person right there and then, so that you can start executing? What's your style, or how do you feel in regards to onboarding people?
Are we talking from an employee standpoint, or are we
Yeah,
talking about finding
yeah.
like people? Okay, I just want to make sure
From a
that
yeah, specifically from a leadership perspective, right? If I'm a manager, if I'm a district manager, if I'm, someone in leadership, right? How do you ensure that the person that you're bringing on is the right person? Do you ask about mission, vision, values personally, or is there something else that you do yourself that, as you're selecting the right people, you go, yeah, you know what, this person gets it. We're gonna bring you on, or no, thanks so much for the, we appreciate the time, but we're gonna move on to someone else. How do you make that decision?
Well, I mean, honestly, you're advertising your mission, vision, and values, right?
Mm.
So when you're putting out a job description from a hiring standpoint, that should be right in your. This is what our company is about.
Right.
This is the position that's open with our company. If you feel you're a fit, please submit a resume. I mean, it literally is that simple, because when you go through your interview process, and you should have multiple people interviewing that person so that you can get the different perspectives on them. Um, and and I always suggest somebody that's at the same level within the corporation
Yeah.
interviewing them, someone that has to work with them directly, is kind of key. But when you're interviewing them from that lens, that you are always considering mission, vision, values as you're interviewing. And then as you're doing your interview wrap up and you have your meeting with everybody who has interviewed with them, that is the lens that you discuss. Can they execute, and do they match with our mission, vision, and values?
Yeah, I love
If
that. The vision that I have is a telescope, right? You want to make sure that your lenses are in alignment, because if one is off just ever so slightly, what you're seeing is blurred, right? You're not going to be able to see anything, right? Like,
Yeah, I like to align it with a microscope, because what I'm looking for is a
yeah.
virus. Okay, I want to make sure I'm not bringing a virus into the
Oh,
organization.
interesting. Okay.
That's how I really look at it. I mean, if you get deep into my psyche,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's about inoculation, right? I do
Wow.
not want to bring a virus into the organization. I
Right.
don't want to bring a virus into my life,
Sure.
right? From an organizational
Yeah,
standpoint,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
I
don't
mean,
want to get the organization sick, and from a
right,
personal standpoint, I don't want to get sick. I don't
right.
want
Then
the
otherwise,
virus zapping my energy. Yeah,
right. How else do you execute if you're bringing in something that's not going to be good for you, right? How do you execute, right? So that totally makes sense. So then, am I understanding correctly then that upon looking through and ensuring that there there isn't a bacteria, or there isn't a virus coming in, that then and only then, when you understand that no, this is clean, then and only then do you bring them into the fold and make them a lens of the bigger microscope, so that as you bring more people in, you're
yeah,
able to determine, am I
yeah.
understanding correctly?
Yeah, no, and that goes for strategic partnerships. That goes for every companies that you're hiring on to subcontract.
Right.
Okay, I mean, you want corporate alignment
Sure.
with that. You need to have similar mission, vision, and values. Not exact, very similar though. I mean, it's really key, and understanding that strategic partner is living, not just giving lip service
Right.
to those. I mean, you really want, I see lots of companies going to strategic partnerships, and they're at the legal level. What you're going to do this, we're going to do this, you're going to do this, and nobody's ever talking about, and I very rarely, do we match from a culture standpoint? Because if we don't, what are the odds that we're really going to be supported at the end of the day? If
Mm,
this company is about executing, and solving a problem, and they are 100% for their vision, and this company doesn't have a vision because they're all about let's make the quick buck wherever we can, those two companies are not going to work well together.
right.
They are not. This one is going to do things that ultimately dirty this one's um, their view in the marketplace.
Right. Their lens.
They're going to be misaligned,
Yeah.
right? So it builds your lens to look at every relationship from a personal side and then from a corporate side, every relationship.
Sure.
It's really the key to being happy from a personal standpoint, and the key to growth in a corporation or a company.
Yeah, because how else do you execute, right? Because if you don't have that, then you're not going to have the energy to be able to do what you need to do, right? Like, you
Right.
know, making sure your customer is okay and served and you're solving the
Yeah.
problem. And right. So we've brought on people. We've understood our mission, vision, and values, both in, you know, as an individual, as an organization. I think that's great. Now, talk to us about scope creep, right? As we bring people on, oftentimes when you bring people onto a team, because they have their own lens, maybe they're seeing other opportunities, maybe they're seeing other problems. And although the vision is there, they understand. Oftentimes with teams, they go, well, you know what, we can do this event. And I'll give an example. And we spoke about it last time too with this other organization that I was with now many years ago, where they would try and have a team outing combined with vendor management. And the focus first was vendor management, vendor education. And then they would try and squeeze in, you know, like, oh, yeah, there's team bonding. Oh, yeah, so we're going to do this and that. How do you ensure that you don't lose sight, right? If we're using the analogy of the microscope, how do we ensure that we stay on the slate? That what we're working on is exactly what we're being focused on versus, well, we could do this. We can add on this other slate, and we do have the other lenses, so we could have a bigger microscope. Is that, you know what I mean? Like, and so now we're kind of pushing, and now it's like, oh, well, we're delayed. Well, why are we delayed? Well, we took on this and we did that. How do we avoid that? How do we avoid taking on too much or even just in general scope creep?
Yeah, so actually, this is like very apropos. It's
Isn't it always, Paul?
um,
Isn't it
I
always?
know, no, this. I could go into a dream I had last night,
Love
but
it.
I won't do that. But the essence of the dream was, you know, we had a house, and my neighbors, and there was a hurricane coming,
Oh my
and
gosh.
then I'm running around. We're trying to get things put away, and then I ran around the front of the house, and the trees had fallen in, and somehow the water was coming in off the ocean, getting underneath the house and moving the house, and it was caving
Pandemonium.
in. It was,
Pandemonium.
yeah, pandemonium going on. It was caving in, and then my phone beeped, and I looked, and I'm like, oh shit, I got an appointment. Hold on. So, um,
Right,
I
right.
woke up this morning, and I'm saying to myself, yeah, I got to get control over a few things.
Yeah.
There's some scope creep going on in my
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
right? So
So what's
it's
your pro-
interesting how my psyche just kind of picks it up and says,
yeah.
"Dude, you're doing that." So I was in a meeting this week, and someone brought one of my favorite people up in the meeting, General Norman Schwarzkopf. Now, I've
Okay.
yeah, this is like. Um, Schwarzkopf was one of my favorites because he was outstanding at exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
So, you know, um, in the military over in, Iraq, Iraq was invading Kuwait. And of course, we were, you know, Schwarzkopf was in charge of that theater. And, you know, there were a lot of other generals and coming in and going, we should do this, we should do this, we should do this. And Schwarzkopf got upset because there was scope creep going on. And
Mm.
he said, if anyone mentions anything about anything, it doesn't have to do with getting Saddam Hussein out of Iraq, I don't want to hear it.
Wow.
And he killed it. I mean, he just killed it. And there's something to be said in that.
Mm.
And this was brought up by somebody else. I haven't thought about Schwarzkopf in probably 15, 20 years. But I just kind of went, oh yeah, right. That's that guy. It's that guy. I mean, of course, lots of people say things like that, but he just happened to be at the top at the time. Um, but that guy, that's right. That's right, man. Kill it. You got to kill it.
Mm.
You got to look at it through the lens of the project that you're working on, and is it directly impactful to move that needle forward on that particular project? And if it's not, kill it.
How do you know?
And
How do you know the difference between killing something completely or shelving it for later? How do you make that determination?
well, see, again, just trying to make that determination is scope creep.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Love that.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's the point is that you are targeting at this.
Mm.
And we talked about shiny things the other day. That's scope creep, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
even taking the time to analyze some things, if the initial analyzation, if the quick look, the 15-second look says this has nothing to do with what we're going, bye.
Move
Don't
on.
take the time. Move on. Just keep moving forward. You know, I always love the Kentucky Derby or the Triple Crown.
Okay.
Horses have the blockers on because
Oh,
no
oh.
scope creep. I don't want to see anything else coming in. Right?
Yeah.
That's so the horse can't see what's beside him and can't get distracted. He can only see straight forward. That's what we need to do is put those blinders on so that we can
Wow.
execute.
Wow. When do we, if at all, find ourselves as we're executing? How do you determine when you need to pivot? We spoke last time in regards to when you're making a plan, understanding that when you make that plan that you build in pivot ability. Talk to us about understanding when is it a good time to realize, yeah, you know what? We got to pivot. We need to go in this other direction. We thought we were doing this and we have this other information, or like what are the qualifications to say, whoa, we got to go in a different direction.
Well, and it depends what kind of plan, of course, but the
Yeah, sure.
basic idea is that you have to identify risk, right? You
Mm,
know, you're going to know through research that there are some risks to your plan. And based on those risks, you're going to have contingencies, right? So if we that there's a risk out there, we may or may not run into it. If we run into it, then we're going to do this.
yeah,
Really good planning. Um, of course, there are things that you don't know,
sure.
right? So,
Right.
um, you know, from a company standpoint, of course, you keep an eye on the market. You feel or you have enough market research that is constantly going on to understand where the market may be going,
Yeah.
and if it seems to it's going to take a shift, then you should probably start building your contingency plans and how you're going to deal with that shift. And then when those conditions, you have to you have to build a trigger, right?
Mm,
Certain things have to come to bear, and if those come to fruition, then you pivot, right?
yeah.
Because you've done enough research, you may know or you may not know. Um, but ultimately, this is like playing basketball, right? Um, it's very quickly changing. You're going to have to, be well trained enough and committed to your goal or your purpose
Yeah.
that you can make pivots quickly, understanding your capabilities. I mean, pivoting. What are our capabilities? What new capabilities do we need to have to make the pivot? And then, do we have the resources to make that pivot?
Love it.
Right. So it's capabilities, and that's really the thing is a lot of companies will pivot without the capability, and that's where they'll get lost, or they haven't put the capabilities in, or they pivot, they have capability, but then they find out they don't have the resources or the right resources to do that. I
Right.
guess that goes back to capabilities, but
Sure, sure, sure.
yeah, but
And
yeah,
then it feels like they're trying to change a tire on a moving car, right? It's like, well, wait a minute, how are we supposed to?
yeah. That's a good analogy.
Yeah, yeah. I'm telling you, the reason the visualizations and the analogies that I have, I wish I could say that are of my own. they're from amazing leaders, much like yourself, amazing leaders who time and time again have understood what you're talking about. I'm my understanding of all of this is that this is just sage wisdom from you and some of the other people that I personally have had in my life, and most especially in regards to execution. So terms like changing a tire in a moving car, or seeing the trees, not the forest. Understanding, big picture versus little picture. Clouds and dirt is another one that I like a lot. Like, are you in the clouds? Are you supposed to be navigating, or are you in the dirt? Are you supposed to be, crawling through? Are you, working the field, if you will, right? So that's all from amazing leaders, much like yourself, much like from other organizations that I've had the honor and the pleasure and the blessing of being able to work with and help them execute against their vision and their plans. Paul, if there's nothing else that no one else remembers, what should people remember today in regards to execution?
Oh, wow. We talked about so much today. I'm
We did.
excited. Wow.
It was
Yeah, so I think the big thing that will translate for today would be having your personal vision and
yeah,
your personal values, right? Because that will translate into, if you're an entrepreneur, it'll translate into your vision for your company. And those values of the company and your personal values are should be in complete alignment. If they're not, there's some self digging that you need to do to understand that. But really is start looking at people through the lens of your personal purpose and values. It'll be an interesting exercise for you, because you'll start seeing some people a little bit differently.
yeah, that is interesting. Love it. Paul, thank you always for being with us. Thank you for creating this Tiger framework so we could stop scratching through life and really clawing our way through and achieving our successes. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll be speaking next time in regards to rejuvenation. We're going deep into rejuvenation. We'll touch a little bit more tactically in regards to that. And if you want to be able to learn all of this for yourself, your organization, if you're someone who, quite frankly, is in commission-based sales, you're doing millions of dollars, and you're really trying to get to that next level, there's no other team, there's no other organization that I could ever possibly suggest other than Paul over at clevelandrain.com. Head on over to clevelandrain.com and book your time with Paul. Understand where you are, and Paul's going to come in with the Tiger framework and so much more with his wisdom and his team and his experience. So head on over to book your time over at clevelandrain.com. And with that, we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.